me ask you a question about the context of the WNBA right now, because it seems that you are part of a cohort of a number of women who are protesting in different ways, right? You're taking time off to focus on these fantastic initiatives, but many women, if not all of the players, recently just walked off the court during the national anthem. Am I getting that right?
You are. They walked off before the anthem. Some people didn't make it all the way off the court by the time it started playing, but you're correct. The players wanted to be in the locker rooms during the anthem.
And so talk about that. What was the decision and the thinking that went into that? And was there disagreement? Was it unified? You know, how would you characterize how that developed?
Yeah, it's team by team based, but there's a unity there because now you see a lot of teams doing it. And the idea behind it is we all seen the chat about kneeling. Is that disrespectful? What to do during the anthem? So there's this whole thing around the anthem now that is a topic of discussion. And so the players, I guess they kind of took everything out of it and just was not going to be on the court. Everyone can enjoy the anthem how you prefer to enjoy it, and then let's play ball. So I think that it was a great solution in the sense that they got to make their statement. They didn't want to, whatever they wanted to do, something during the anthem, they got to make their statement by not being on the court. And then people that didn't want to see anything and wanted to keep sports and everything different, perfect. Now the anthem, just stand there and it's a clear court for you. So I just love how the players in the WNBA have been just a unified unit. We've been moving. Even I'm outside of the bubble, and I feel very connected to the players inside the bubble. So I like the continuity there.
Yeah. And women hoopers were the first, if I'm not mistaken, to take a knee before a game, before the whole Colin Kaepernick thing took off. Is that right? Am I
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And so women athletes, sisters, have really been on the forefront of this very, political movement and gesture.
Yes, ma'am. In 2016, I was playing for the Minnesota Lynx, and we decided to wear shirts before the game, and it said "Change starts with us." And we understood that it might not be received well. So we actually put a police shield on the back of our shirts just so everyone could understand it's not us versus the police. It's not us versus America. This is just us saying that we have to take a stand. There needs to be a change. And it did not go well. The Minnesota Police Department walked out of our games. They said they would no longer be policing them. The fans were confused because I read a quote somewhere that racism is so ingrained in American history that when we were protesting what was happening in America, people and racism, people thought we were protesting America. It was never about America. It was about the racism in America. So it wasn't about the military. People were like, I have military in my family. We were like, we do too.
So do we, right?
Like, we have police. We do too. We're simply saying that this is unacceptable what's happening, and we want to say something about it. We want to do something about it. So no, it was not received well. That following football season is when Kaepernick took a knee. So 2016 was the year where a lot of things started happening as far as athletes activism is concerned.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, I tell you that. I mean, for me, just to transform the notion of what it is to be a celebrity. So you celebrate greatness in the form of serving others than just celebrating success and having material toys. Because your athletic greatness is already undeniable. Everybody who's on the team, the women and the men, they got to be the best of the best of the best. Creme de la creme. But that's a certain kind of greatness. Now, see, we come from a tradition of Black people where the greatest is always those who are of most service, willing to donate, sacrifice, and empty their gifts that they have to empower others. That's precisely what you're doing. Now, is there a connection between you and Brother LeBron and some of the others in terms of the kind of activism taking place?
Absolutely. So, when I first opted out, and a lot of people can probably just watch it. When I first opted out, I didn't have a plan. I just told you guys my whole plan the last year. I remember when I opted out, people were asking me that exact same question, and I was just like, look, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm taking a leap of faith, and we're just going to see what happens. Actually, about 3 days or 4 days after I opted out, LeBron James's team reached out to me and asked if I wanted to join the More Than a Vote campaign because they like where I'm going and they think we're going in the same direction. So I was like, what? Yes, I want to join LeBron and the team. Thank you very much. So I would say that actually helped with my confidence in the space, in the sense that they reached out and brought me in the fold. And it kind of it gave me my footing almost, in a sense that I'm like, okay, this is going to be all right. And it helped me funnel in on what I wanted to do. So again, the women in the wobble, as they're calling it, and the men in the bubble, I've been overwhelmed with just the positive responses that I've gotten. Honestly, it's been crazy.
So, yeah, that's amazing. I'm so glad that there's collaboration, because none of us can do this alone. And that's one of the things, you know, Cornel emphasizes so much. It's not only that there's this tradition, but that tradition is also about community and about collaboration and building on each other's efforts. So that's really going to make everything you're coming up with soar even more. But so tell me, let me just play devil's advocate a little bit to give you some more room to flesh out how you came to this decision. But so, you know, I love the WNBA. I love basketball in general. I watch men and women. And, you know, I think to myself, you know, if these incredible female athletes, you know, if more of you were to disappear for the season, you know, that could really jeopardize the visibility for young women, right, to take this path. It's not as direct and easy and confirmed a path for women as it is for men. And so if I were to be like a fan, I mean, I am a fan, but, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate, a fan who saying to myself, well, look, you know, why couldn't Renee kind of do both? I mean, the season's 4 months long, and, you know, she's already a great hooper. She don't have to practice that much, you know. She don't have to set a record every half, you know. Why can't she play and do this social justice, use the platform of the WNBA and use the connections of it to do this work? So what would you say to that person? What would be your explanation for why these two paths needed a temporary sort of separation?
Yeah, so I would say it's personnel based, and that's why I made sure that when I opted out, I said there's no pressure on anyone to join me. This is my personal decision, and the reason I call it a personal decision is because the reason I opted out, just to put it in perspective, I had until June 30th to opt out. I opted out June 18th. It wasn't, I didn't have a buzzer beater decision. I knew it. And the reason I knew it was because my constant thought process was, what can I do to make a change? And when people would ask me, are you excited about the season? I almost had to give a cookie cutter answer, because that's just not what I've been thinking about. My heartstrings were pulling me to something different. And so it wasn't about being in the bubble and the amount of practice time. It was about what I wanted to do. So it was about where my mind was. And I'm a passionate player. Like, everybody that see me play, I play with my passion. Like, that's my motivation when I'm training. That's everything in me. So if my passion is out here doing this right now, that's my motivation. So that's me as a player. That's just not good for me. So people can understand. Once I started to tell people, it's not about can you do both. There's plenty of people that can do both, but me, I can't, because I'm driven by my passion.
I see.
Let's talk a bit about the forms that passion takes. Because on the one hand, I think a lot of people view athletes as if they are some kind of compartmentalized persons, rather than whole beings who put their fundamental selves into what they are doing based on a certain spirituality of being an athlete. And then to be a life athlete, or an athlete who is engaging in life, those on the court like yourself and those in life like yourself can allow that spillover, the self-respect, the self-discipline, the self-regard, and the courage and the vision and so forth. Say a word about the kind of spirituality of being an athlete that in a way you think is often misunderstood from the larger perspective.
Yeah, you know, Jimmy Butler, when asked why is he not having anything on the back of his jersey, he said, because I want people to understand that when I leave the court, I'm just a black man in America. And I think that's the duality they see me as an athlete, and they're like, well, you're living a great life. Like, what's the problem? And I'm like, when I'm on the court and you guys are cheering for us, it is a great life. You know, I'm an athlete. I'm a professional athlete. So that comes along with a lot of bells and whistles. But when I come home and I'm sitting here looking at my TV screen, I'm looking at everything you guys are looking at, and I'm thinking about my nephews being 6'5" and 6'4", and that's the first thing they said about George Floyd, his stature. That's why 3 men had to kneel on him, his stature. And I'm like, well, my nephews are 6'5" and 6'4". What does that say for them? So for me, that was alarming, because I can't just go through life and constantly be worried about something and not feel like I'm doing something about it. So I think that people have a hard time separating the woman and the athlete. But for us, I'm a Black woman playing in the WNBA. That's me, like the whole sentence. Most people just want us to be a person playing in the WNBA. I'm a Black woman playing in the WNBA. And so because of that, after the games, I'm a Black woman in America. People, if I get pulled over, a lot of people won't care. A lot of police officers won't care that I play in the WNBA. They might not know.
I want to follow up on what you just said, because I think it's really important. I'm so glad Cornel encouraged that direction. You know, one of the real dangers of celebrity for Black people is this illusion that that celebrity transcends the collective experience of the kind of hate and targeting that Black people face. And so you get seen as somebody who's somehow Black and accepted, and for many Americans that translates into we accept all Black people, when in fact it's quite the opposite. We accept those we know. I often tell people, look, if police were to run into Shaquille O'Neal on a dark street and not already know he was Shaquille O'Neal, it would definitely not end well. And that recognition is something that I think we really need to hammer home, because again, celebrity seems to supersede this experience, but it really doesn't. And of course, there's all of everyone's families and relatives, but even the perception of athletes as exceptional athletes, and somehow that exceptional nature transcending the racial experience, is a really big part of the myth. So that's why it's so powerful that so many athletes are taking such an explicit and leadership role. Really, frankly, in some cases, more leadership than people who are supposed to be leaders. You know what I mean, Corn?
Oh, absolutely. That is the truth. That is the truth. And you are one of them.
Yes,
I'll tell you that right now. But I've got a personal question, which is, who would be some of the writers and literary artists who inspire you? And who are some of the musicians who inspire you? And how does that come together inside of your heart, mind, soul, and body?
Okay, so I'm going to start with music, because music is a huge passion of mine. And I would just say gospel. When we talk about inspire and give me joy I can't explain, we're talking about,
oh, yes.
You know, we're talking about, so if we're talking about what inspires me, I would say gospel music. Gospel music has the ability just to make me cry at the drop of a dime. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's even wrong. I'm just crying because it's so beautiful. So I would say gospel music, it speaks to me definitely. I need the A, B, C, and D selection. If I'm at church, I want all of it. I need all of them. A, B, and C. I need the youth choir, the senior choir. I want it all. Like that's me. As far as literary, I would say I need to dive more into it. You know, I don't have a favorite. My literary writer that I enjoy the most is my mom. And that's going to sound crazy. She's been my teacher my whole life. And
but she's been a distinguished professor, you say that?
Yeah, she's a professor at the West Virginia State University, but that's who taught me. So when people are saying they like what I'm saying and, oh, how are you thinking like this? I'm like, that's how I was raised. So I would say that the way that she's talked to me, the way that she's taught me, I've read plenty of her things. She came up with The Last Yard. So I need to say that, like the whole program, The Last Yard, that's her program that I'm doing for my mom.
Oh, that's powerful.
My mom is the biggest inspiration when it comes to that.
Hey there. Thank you for joining us on The Tightrope. For the full episode, please visit us at www.thetightrope.pod.com. We'll see you soon.